I think, mate, it's connecting to
Yeah.
the cloud server. So it looks like we're live. It looks like we're recording for the first episode of Strategy and Conversions. We're going with that name, right? I think that's what
Yeah.
makes it right.
Sounds good to
So,
me.
yeah, so look, Mike, it's great to see you. How you doing, first off?
Very good, thanks. Yeah, not bad at all, thanks.
Good, good. So, as I mentioned, first episode of Strategy and Conversions. We've known each other for quite a few years now. We've been having these conversations, and each week we have a chat. We basically put the world to right in the whole kind of marketing
Yeah.
space, especially around strategy and conversions. And we thought, why not just record an episode and hopefully share some of this wisdom with other people. So
Yeah.
why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, Mark, what you do, and what makes you the copywriter for conversions?
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, thanks. So I started my copywriting business about 16, 17 months ago now. I started learning copywriting back of 2011, and I never really realized that I could. And I was writing for mates, websites and stuff, and writing copy for people, sales pages, that kind of thing. And people really liked what I wrote, but I never really had the confidence in myself to be able to make a living out of it. So it was about 16 months ago that I decided to launch it as a business. And having read a lot of different pieces of copy, I realized that one thing that's missing from many things that people write now is that they don't take the time, or the copy doesn't take the time to build a relationship and build a trust and the respect for the people whose business it is. And too much copy, I think, and it's been borne out actually, too much copy tries to get people to take action into a buying situation almost straight away. And the buyers now are so much more sophisticated than that. So I started writing copy, and I built my own model, which is based on classical models that have come along in the past. And I actually call it a new evolution in copywriting. And the model I used is called GREAT, and which I can go through in a minute. But it's a model that structures the writing for people and leads people into making sure they're taking the time to build an element of trust and start to build a relationship, which then attracts warmer leads to them, which they can hopefully convert more easily.
I love it. You're talking my language there. I think that's it. I think you kind of touched on the point of people kind of looking at that instant reward from their marketing in general, but especially from their content. And I think for me, around the kind of strategy piece, so obviously you mentioned your company. I think I got involved in internet marketing about kind of 10, 12 years ago now. And about 5 years ago, I set up my business where I was doing bits and pieces of marketing for people. So, websites and social media and all sorts of different kinds of advertising. And over the years, that's transformed then into kind of overviewing and then strategy on how they're going after things.
Yeah.
And I think one of those big reasons on my shift over the years of moving from doing things for people to working on a direction and then obviously the growth is just the accessibility of the tools and resources that we have available, that people can do things themselves.
Yeah.
But I actually think the strategy and copy are probably those things at the minute that those are the areas that people need help with, because it is that direction of working out where you want to go and how to get there, and then how that kind of copy can support the tools and things that you can do yourself. Of course, you can get other people to do things for you, but you can do some of those things yourself, such as websites. I mean, you can set up a website in a day with one of these sort of builders which are out there, and anyone can take to social media and post and obviously do videos and everything else which is out there. I think probably for myself, I think that there's a big difference between content and copy.
Yeah.
That's where maybe people kind of get that misconception over, if they write some content, they're a copywriter, or if it's someone, and I don't mean any disrespect to anyone, but you could maybe get an admin support person, possibly like a VA or something, who are great at writing and they can write content and they can give you a really good written blog.
Yeah.
But the actual copy is where we get into, I guess, part of the psychology and part of the nurturing and the next step.
Yeah, there's a huge, and like the stuff that you do and the stuff that I do, there's a huge element of understanding the psychology of selling that goes into copywriting. And the same with your when you because I've seen this, the work you do as well with the marketing strategy. And I think that's where people get it wrong, is that by dumping something onto a page, which can look quite reasonable, they're not trying to get into the head of the person that they're writing for, and the person they want to buy their product. So so it takes a lot of thought, and this is where I think maybe this is where things people haven't got this quite right. So marketing strategy, like you do, takes a lot of thought. It's a thought of what are we trying to achieve and working backwards of how we're going to work, how we're going to do that. 100%. Copywriting, similar to that, it's a lot of thought, but the thought for copywriting is the psychology of selling, because people buy on emotions and then they'll justify it with logic. And that's the way you have to write that stuff. You have to appeal to emotions first to get people interested in reading it, because you could write the best copy in the world, but if your headlines don't hit any emotion, then they're just going to move past it, and they're not going to read it.
So just on that point there, then, so do you think that the headline is what really packs the punch? Do you think that's the majority of copywriting?
Yeah, I think there are two elements. Definitely the headline. The headline is the first and most important element, and that's been borne out by different copywriters, Amy Porterhouse, Neil Patel. In fact, virtually everybody you read always says that the headline is you got to spend 80% of your time when you write a copy. 80% of time is spent on thinking and crafting the headline.
I guess that's a bit like the kind of analogy of the newspapers, right? Where it says about the headline sells and the copy tells, or something like that.
Yeah. And then it's the first paragraph. So in the great model, so the G stands for grab their attention, and the R stands for raise the intensity of that emotion. And those are the two things to start with. If you've got that, then people will normally read a long way through, see your call to actions, and maybe start working their way into your sales funnel. So the G is grab attention. There's got to be a really, really good, short, concise headline. And again, some work that's been done in the States recently has borne out something I've been preaching for a year at least, or over a year, is that questions are really the one that gets people. You're digging into their emotion, you're asking a question, and then the second paragraph, or the paragraph of the R part of it, is that you're not answering that question at that point, you're just even raising the intensity of that emotion. So by the end of it, they're thinking, wow, I need to do something about this.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. I like that. I was just about to ask, do you have any kind of tips for, those headlines? I think questions are great. And like you said, it's, question will lead them in. That kind of paragraph then will, I guess, hammer home, that question that they're asking themselves. And I guess as well, just thinking about that for copy, I think initially when I think of copy and copywriting, my head initially goes back to the old kind of form of letters and the sales letters that would go out. And then now, obviously, with the kind of digital side, we're talking websites and landing pages and sales pages and even blogs. But I guess it relates to everything, right? So I guess you have your emails through to your ads, and even your videos would work in the same way. I guess you would still take that content that you would write and put it into a video.
That's the same. I mean, the video is huge now. Okay, so a lot of people say video is seen by 80% of people, and they love, it sells your business. But videos can still have no substance to them. If the script behind the video is, so you can have a really flashy video, but if the script behind the video isn't actually taking, it's an overused phrase, but if it isn't taking somebody through a journey, they'll watch the video and say, oh, that's good, okay, and move on. So the whole idea is of the copy is that you're taking somebody through a journey, you're building that emotion, and then the calls to action isn't about selling, I need to sell you something, it's just about moving them along your sales funnel. So the call to action could be a simple click on a link to see something, or pick up the phone and let's book an appointment or a discovery call. It's not a sale, it's just moving them along. But the whole point is,
I'm going to go off on a bit of a tangent. I don't mean to interrupt you there. Just while this is kind of just fresh in my mind now. I think call to actions, right? Super important, obviously. And I think going back to these kind of letters, that the old kind of form sales letters, the call to action will be at the end.
Oh yeah,
And,
yeah,
and we still do this a lot within websites and email and stuff like
yeah.
that. And we may even put stuff, maybe halfway through and towards the end. What's your take on call to actions within video? And the reason I'm asking this is that I think a lot of people do that call to action at the end of a video, but from working with different clients and analyzing some of their data around video, it seems like a lot of people will watch the first kind of 20 seconds, and then that's when it starts to drop off. Then, some people watch the full video, obviously, but some people kind of drop off throughout. So does it make sense to just put your call to action straight in at the beginning? Does it?
Well, that's interesting because on the training I give, I talk about if you have a long form blog, and you can imagine a video is kind of a long form video blog, if you like. You need at least three call to actions. And on this whole point where you grab their attention with the headline, and then you raise that intensity of that in that straight away there, you've taken, if it's just looking back at a video, that would probably be about the first 20 seconds of a video. A call to action comes there because, like you said, if it doesn't, people who are suddenly ready to think about buying or think about moving and contacting you, you lose them because you're waiting to put this at the bottom of the page. And as you said, they'll start and they'll move on to something else because you've raised their emotion, but now you're not fulfilling anything. So I do agree that call to action, there should be preferably three, one very close to the top, one in the kind of the middle of the copy, and still one at the bottom. But I think people do miss that. They think that it's too early to put them in. And again, there's people from the States especially that suggest that 3 to 4 calls to action and one quite early on is a good way to go.
I like that one early on. I always kind of look at that as planting the seed.
Yeah.
So, I guess maybe where I've looked at that one is maybe the call to action is actually to push them to watch the whole thing or to read the whole thing because they will get something out of it.
Yeah.
What was I going to say on the whole kind of call to action point? I guess with that kind of copy then and having the call to actions in, where and I get that you said free, but where do we kind of draw the line on being too pushy?
Yeah. Okay. That's good. It really depends. I think it depends. I think it depends on the length. If you're having a shorter form post or something, then 3 is a little bit excessive, and maybe 2. I don't think you should ever put in more than 4, because I think that is a bit pushy. 3 is a good number because, as you said, the whole point about that first call to action is you may get someone who will actually pick up the phone or whatever that thing is to start with. The call to action can be read the rest because there's something really good at the end, which is used, and it's a bit of a cliche nowadays because people understand, but they'll read to it, or it could be, as I say, it could be a call to action where you plant a seed. They don't take any action, but they will carry on reading anyway because they think, oh yeah, I may do. Let me read a bit further to see if it's worthwhile. So just by having it there, it's planted that seed. I think if you get beyond, if you have a call to action virtually every paragraph or every piece of the video, then I think people will just click off. So I think you can definitely oversell. And I have seen that from many of the Facebook ads where people are constantly overselling. And I don't know what response.
I think from my view on that is sometimes when you see some of these posts and you see the call to action, you automatically think, well, the whole kind of thing is written then just to push me for the call to action. Whereas actually that content, that information that's in that blog or ad or video could actually be really useful and really good. But sometimes you can be put off by seeing a certain call to action.
Yes.
Is there a certain type or a certain phrase within a call to action that you would use that doesn't seem as harsh or as kind of salesy, if that's a real word?
I mean, we got to remember that we're all conditioned to take commands from an early age from our parents and our teachers. So we still have that, even when they were adults, you still have this thing that will respond to commands. So when you ask with call to action says, do something now, or people still think, oh, what people still have this thing that I need to do it, but I believe that I think that the first call to action needs to be kind of milder language, if you like. It's asking them to, I mean, just read further to find out more is a call to action, and that is not a salesy call to action, but you're still drawing them into the copy. So I think yes, there are different phrases to use, and I think that and again, what I'll say to people is when they create call to actions, they need to have different sentences in those different call to actions. They can't have the same one each time. So I think that yes, there is a softer approach. Read further, or have a look at what we have now. More mild language, I think, at the very beginning, and then it gets a little bit more, not stronger, but a bit more commanding as it goes on.
I like that. I guess in my kind of focus with, I guess, the overview of marketing and strategy, and we're looking to lead people onto that kind of next stage.
Yeah,
is that with those call to actions, I look at mini conversions.
yes,
So
exactly.
We're not necessarily trying to get the sell,
No,
but we're trying to lead them onto the next kind of step.
yeah,
So I guess we can do it as a bit of a bridge, right? So if someone is reading a blog post, we could get them onto a sales page then from the blog post, rather than it being an initial sell.
yes. I think that's again a very useful tool. A lot of people spend a lot of money on websites, and a lot of they have copy on there, but the websites don't work for them. So some of the times you have to be using blogs to tend to get people to that sales content, if you like, onto the website. And the whole point about having copy that builds the trust and the respect is once they start to read through this and they thought this could be worth checking out, then it could be just click onto this link to read more information on our website, and then you're taking people to the web, which of course, as you know, the longer they stay on the web, Google love it on SEO and all that kind of stuff. So many different things start to come into play then. And we can do that via LinkedIn articles as well, where you can actually take people away from a LinkedIn article, not a post, but a LinkedIn article, and send them to your website. And it's just reinforcing all the time the copy that or the message that you want to put across.
That's great. I think that leads me into this question about kind of, I guess, with social media and website copy, is there a difference?
That's an interesting one. There can be, depends on the, I think this is where it comes down to purpose. So each piece of copy needs to have a purpose. Sure. And it could be because you're attracting a person for the first time, or they're within your sales funnel. And if you've got content on your website, it may be serving a different purpose than the post or the thing that you have on social media. So I think in some cases it will be different. And I know that I read something recently actually that Google hates seeing copy that is just the same, copy and pasted and put into different places. So it needs to be slightly different anyway from a Google SEO point of view. But I think that sometimes you're looking for you're putting messages out on social media and pointing people to whatever other area, either a sales page or a website, and the language does need to be slightly different so that they don't think they're just reading the same old stuff again, because that will just, again, that's a great way of boring off your prospects.
I guess, well, on the whole kind of social media front, and I think this really ties in with that Gary Vaynerchuk quote and book of jab, 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 right hook.
Yeah,
and it's talking about kind of giving value and stuff like that before we look to kind of, put that punch in for the sell or whatever it is. And for me, what I find with a lot of people in marketing is instead of it kind of being jab, 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 right hook, they either just keep jabbing or they keep right hooking. So everything is just blatant sales, or there's sales within there that you can kind of do that, or people are just so focused on that kind of adding value and talking about how great they are or why you would need them, that nothing actually happens to bridge that. Do you find that with the stuff?
I do. I do. And what I've found, and I think what it comes down to, again, it comes down to that the purpose of that piece of copy. What are you trying to do? We all have a business, and businesses and marketing is the lifeblood of business. But unless we're earning an income and the business isn't going anywhere, it just becomes a very expensive hobby. So adding value is great, and the more you can nurture people to help. But there comes a time when you have to say to people, okay, so when you warm them up and have built a good relationship, as you said, that hook has to come in and say, okay, can we do business together? And I think that too many people seem to be in their copy, as you say, always adding more value, and eventually people are going to have read so much they're going to say, well, I don't need your services anymore, thank you, because you've given me some great value. So I think the ratio is about 4 to 1, 3 to 1 maybe, of adding value, and then, okay, so now we're going to do business with you, and that's a reasonable ratio. I think at the moment it seems to work quite well.
I guess it is as well. I'm kind of saying, that ratio of sales to kind of adding value. And what I mean by sales is that kind of blatant stuff of, but buy my stuff,
Asking for the sale, yeah.
asking for the sale. But
Yeah.
I actually feel like in everything that we do, with every kind of social media post or blog post, whatever it is that we're doing, even though that initial focus isn't for the sale, we are still selling through our content.
Always. Yeah. And I think that's, again, because when all the copy that's being written is basically there to impress the prospect with your knowledge, your skill set, and your expertise, so they build a trust with you. So it's always, even when you're offering value, you have a piece of copy that's offering value for nothing, you're still the one giving that value. So therefore they're seeing that the respect is there, because they understand that you know enough stuff, you're quite happy to give things away, and give as much value, give that little piece of value that you can in that piece of copy, so that the next time they read something, they're going to be expecting maybe more, but when a call to action that is a sale, when that hook comes, people aren't caught on a blind side. They're actually almost waiting for it, because we have to remember, going back to the psychology of selling, people hate being sold to, which is why the hook never works. But people love to buy, which is why the jab, jab, jab hook works, because that hook comes when they're ready to buy.
Do you think as well, when with that kind of value, when that jab, jab, jab kind of part, do you think that the people that just continue with value and never ask for the sell, that they never get the sell, or get very, very few sells, because actually people are waiting to be presented with an offer or ask the question, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, and I think this again is interesting, because I think that there are people where who add, as I say, go back to this thing, they add value, they're jabbing all the time, and the prospect will actually stop reading their copy eventually, because there's never been a way to get, they actually think, I want to buy this stuff, but you're not letting me. They have money on the table ready, but they can't spend it with you, so they'll move on to someone else.
I guess it's a very, fine line, on where you put that kind of sales copy in and where you don't. And I guess that's why someone will need to speak to someone like yourself to talk to, create that copy. But yeah, it's very interesting. I think another question that I have, which, you might upset some people with this answer, but you were talking about, like, with SEO, and you're talking about people spending lots of money on websites, and I'm sure you get this, because I get this a lot. And I think that probably this is where actually my kind of services and my business has been really good over the past kind of 18 months, is where I've really kind of taken charge of someone's kind of marketing department, and we've planned out a direction.
Yeah,
you get that kind of too many cooks spoil the broth element to marketing, is that there's lots of different elements and lots of people doing different things, is that if they're not on the same page and working towards the same goal, it basically doesn't go anywhere. And you get the likes of, you might get a website developer, their focus is on creating a really nice website, and it working really well, and working on mobile, and it being fast, and it's all the right stuff. But then you might get then the likes of an SEO person, will want things to be done in a certain way, because they want to rank on Google, and they want to rank for certain words and all this kind of stuff. And then you may get the likes of yourself with copy, that the whole point of your copy is to get the person to take the next step and buy. But that's very difficult to get those three people on the same page.
Yeah, yes, it can be, and that's when again the whole strategy needs to be put in place first, so that because those are just, as you described, those are just all elements of the marketing strategy, and there are more elements as well, but the elements are, okay, we have this wonderful website, and it's, yeah, it needs some impactful copy to get people to read it, but again, if the SEO is not in place, the website is nowhere, and so you need to have the SEO all in there as well. And part of the art of copy, or the crafting of copy, is that you certainly weave in certain keywords into that whole into the copy as well. Not obviously, you don't stuff it with keywords, but the whole idea is, again, SEO web bots can crawl through that. But all those things have got to work in tandem together,
Exactly,
and
yeah.
that's when the marketing strategy comes in place, right? Again, so in your case, you will look at a whole marketing arena and say, right, okay, we need this to work, because then this will work, because then this will work, and bang. And it needs to be a concerted system that works together. So there's kind of gear wheels that are clicking around and working with each other. So on their own, they're not say useless, but they're all over the place, and there's no strategy involved. So it's, again, going back to a machine, it's like the gear wheels turning around here, and this one is still, because that's not doing anything, it isn't connecting with that one to make them turn.
I think that's exactly, yeah, like you said. I think useless is like, I think individually that they're not useless, but when they're put together collectively without the right purpose behind it, it's useless.
Yeah,
because
it doesn't do it.
it's like some things are conflicting against each other and stuff like that. So you said a web developer, for instance, maybe looking at speed, and an SEO person maybe looking at adding in, a video or picture or something like that to within above the fold to get this kind of ranking and stuffing certain keywords within a title or whatever it is. But then the copy is looking at the persuasion of the person reading the next part. And it's like, well, yeah, it is very, very difficult to get that fine line between what do we actually need. And I'm sure as you will know, I know you know, but testing and tweaking and stuff like that is that within marketing, obviously, once we have something in place, it's not job done and we walk away. That we look to improve it and make it better. What would you look for within copy?
Well, it's again, this is stuff that I cover on the training, but first of all, headlines. So once you have a headline, you need to test that again, A/B testing is the same for any type of marketing, and copy is no different. So is this a good headline? When you put it somewhere, has it engaged with people? Have people clicked on it? Can you see from your analytics, or maybe the LinkedIn views and engagement has got, has that headline drawn people in? And it's the same with that first paragraph. Has that worked? So it could be that first of all, you're testing the headline, because the headlines are so crucial that you have to test which ones work. And I've seen some headlines in the past where which to nowadays would seem very, very cheesy, but things like we can make you $1 million or something. Back in the sort of the 60s and 70s, they worked. People actually clicked on them, and I love that. They don't work anymore. So if you still use those same headlines, you're not going to get anywhere. So you have to be constantly testing the sophistication of the people who are reading, because it changes. It changes all the time. Sophistication.
I like that. I think for me that sophistication of marketing is really big, because I think over the years the processes behind marketing haven't changed, but the advancements of technology are insane, right? I mean, you think if you just look at your phone to what you can do on your phone now to what you could do 5 years ago. I can remember however many years ago when I got a BlackBerry and you could do email on it. That was like revolutionary. It's crazy. And now you can run a whole business from an iPhone or or the equivalent. And it's like that technology, people's buying habits and their behavior have changed. The likes of Amazon, we want everything on demand and stuff. Like you said, I think even if you're using stuff from that was working a year ago, it isn't working today. That's that whole kind of thing, is the core of your offer or your service doesn't have to change. But like you said, testing out that kind of title and that way in for people to get to you, is very important.
it's that bringing, and it's again, it's a bit like fishing, isn't it? You're fishing people to bring you come in. So it could be that one part is overfished now, so you've got to fish somewhere else, or it could be that you're using the wrong bait. Or you could use so many analogies.
I think that analogy, you get the big one, which is blue ocean. So it talks about red ocean gets stuff with all the sharks. So all the people are trying to compete for the same kind of customer, and the blue ocean is where you create your own, feeding pot, I guess. For that. I love that. I guess with the copy then, with kind of tweaks and changes. I mean, what are a few tips for people to look at if they have, say, maybe a sales page or a blog post or something like that, and they're getting people to it, but then nothing's happening, people aren't buying? Where would you start?
Well, you'd have to look at that page on the analytics of why. Again, it's kind of what are I know there's recently I saw some software you can actually track the eye line of people when they read stuff.
So there's a couple there. I mean, Hotjar is probably the one that people put on for free. And then you have the likes of True Conversion and Crazy Egg and stuff do a similar thing. It's great. You get those kind of heat maps and stuff.
And so you need to start looking at where people are disengaging. So the whole point is they're engaging onto your, if they're starting to read, you've got them, you've engaged with them. But that's not to say that your copy is still on probation, if you like. If they've read it for the first time, they can quite easily at any stage click off. And you need to understand, first of all, if your sales page isn't producing anything, where are they bouncing off, or where are they clicking off? And you can normally, with those kind of pieces of software, you can normally find where they're clicking off. And so that is, again, maybe a piece of copy that needs to be split tested. So you can still take that piece of copy out, substitute another piece of copy into the same whole sheet, if you like, and test the results. So again, it's still a test. It's always a test. And once you find this, as we know, there's a lot of marketing that is mainly around finding out what works. And once you find out what works, it's then a gold mine. But there's a lot of movement behind that to actually dig into that seam of gold. And that's what a majority of marketing tends to be. You're digging to find out the right ways. When you hit it, it's fantastic.
I think that's the big difference, isn't it, within in doing marketing and marketing working for you? Is I think so many people look at that shiny object or different promises, and it's like, right, I need to do a bit of this, or that didn't work, I need to do a bit of that. Everything works. It's just finding out what works for you and how it works in your kind of system. Like you said, tweaking it and testing it. I think I think we kind of have this misconception of marketing, is that as soon as you press go, that's it. It works and it brings everything in. Like you said, and everyone's different. I mean, I've worked with clients in the same industry in different locations, and what's worked for them hasn't worked for another, and it hasn't worked for the other one. And it's like, it's the same type of business, it's the same type of customer, just different locations. And it's like, it's crazy how if you just tried to put in place what was working for one and it didn't work, well, you pack up your bags and say it didn't work, I'm going now, that's it. But finding out what actually does work takes time.
It does, and that takes time and takes research, and sometimes that's the boring part of it, is that whole testing and taking time, which a lot of people won't take the time to do because it can be boring.
It's the unsexy stuff, isn't it? That's the thing.
So,
everyone wants that funnel automated.
Yes, that's right.
Make money whilst they sleep and everything, but no one wants to put in the work to find out how to make that happen.
That's the thing, isn't it? It's like with everything, there is an element of work that you need to put in place, the kind of the boring, the mundane admin, to make sure that you track everything. Because again, coming back to marketing is all about tracking. You have to track what works and what's not working, but you can still be tracking, because something may be working 1 minute and then stop working. So it's constant tracking and constant monitoring to find out what is going on. Like you said earlier, what worked last year, a headline that was brilliant last year, for example, headlines like "How to get somewhere by doing something without the hassle of," last year or the year before, were a goldmine. People loved them. They said, and now people look at them and say, oh yeah, okay, same old story. What are they trying to sell me now?
I
And they will
think
not even read it.
it's a very good point. I think just in marketing in general, I think like from going back to say 2012 with the whole kind of big change in Google, and that's just to kind of recap it briefly. I mean, you could rank a video or website, sorry, on Google quite easily just by stuffing it with keywords.
Yeah,
Google
yeah,
just kind of flipped the switch overnight, which is like, yeah, John, we're not going to rank that anymore. We're going to do things differently. And I suppose when I was getting into marketing, I kind of really missed that boat. I started doing different things to rank websites, but I think I was looking at different kind of tactics, and I wasn't affected by that, but I wasn't really in that sort of game. But what did happen to me is when I was doing a lot of affiliate marketing in sort of like 2014 sort of time,
yeah,
I was using Twitter to get a majority of my traffic to websites to buy certain things. And just Twitter just became really kind of botty, if that's the word. I think lots
yeah,
of people were
yeah,
setting up different kind of automations and stuff like that,
yeah,
that it just lost a lot of just audience and
yeah.
interaction, and that dried up quite quickly.
Mm.
And then fast forward to say 2016, 17, I could almost guarantee any client I worked with that we would get leads through a Facebook page. And then
Yeah,
Facebook
yeah,
changed the algorithm, and it's just like,
yeah,
you can now reach like 5% of your, the people that follow you. And
yeah,
there's a massive thing going on right now with a battle between Google, Apple, and Facebook. And
yeah,
this is all around the kind of pixel stuff. So,
yeah,
Apple are saying, well, look, we're going to block all kind of, the tracking when people look through our devices and they get onto the website. Well, we're going to block that because you're making all this money, you're getting all this data and all this advantages. What are we getting?
yeah,
And,
yeah,
and stuff like that. So, and Google then jumping on and doing the same thing. So all those people that have been remarketing and making lots of money from that kind of stuff, well, that's going to start drying up. So
that
they're
is
going to have
good.
to look at that next thing. So it's like, if
Yeah,
they're not on that, if they're not tracking things and trying to adapt, well, your business dries up.
yeah. So what? And it's interesting you make that point, actually. So do you have a kind of an idea or a concept in your mind of what is going to be working in the future?
I think the good thing with marketing, and I think however kind of far we go, is I do think that kind of transparency of, just being real and honest
Yeah,
and telling people what you deliver is always going to um, kind of run through. I think something that I've always been big on, especially in the past kind of 3 years, is personal brand,
yeah,
because I think people buy from people, and having some personality within your business is always going to work. And I think what happens with having that person within your business, or that personal brand leading that business, is that you build out authority within that brand.
yeah,
And I think trust is going to be a big thing. I think what we will see, I think, is a big kind of parting within business, because I think what's happened, and rightly so, throughout the pandemic, is lots of people have started businesses.
yeah,
And with that, we've seen a lot of the kind of spam marketing, I guess, where lots of people have put lots of stuff out and lots of saying I can help, and I can do this, and there's no real kind of, there's nothing to differentiate someone who is saying I can do this and another person saying I can do that. Someone could have 10 years experience and they could be really good.
yeah,
Someone could just wake up tomorrow and say it, and we wouldn't know who to go with.
yeah, yeah,
Is that kind of market that we're in now. So I think showing those kind of expertise, and what you can actually help that person, I think that will be the big thing. I think you will see those business that have started up, and even business that have been around and maybe even dropped because they haven't been able to keep up with fulfillment throughout the kind of pandemic,
yeah,
that you will see ones flourish and you will see ones take off, and they will really grow, and then you will see a lot of people kind of scrapping around.
yeah,
So I think it'd be interesting to see what happens with that kind of bottom, where if people kind of get together and collaborate. And I think especially from marketing, I think it doesn't happen enough. I think we're all trying to kind of grab things up for ourselves, and show why we're better than someone else rather than working together. And I guess to use a bit of an analogy there, I mean, if you were to build a house, what, the brickie can't do everything, the chippy
no,
can't do everything.
no,
We need, electrician needs to come in, plumber, we need all these different components.
Yeah.
And it's like that's what we need within marketing. But I think we always try and say, you need this because it's the best, and that kind of stuff, instead of it saying, well, look, this just works in this kind of part, and without your plumbing, well, what's the point in being in your house, right? You've got your shelter, but without your electrics, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
So I think that will going to happen. But what I think the big thing will happen is, especially going back to like the whole kind of Amazon thing of buying on demand and stuff like that. I think that you will see people wanting stuff a lot quicker, so people don't want to wait. So I think you will basically see services change as well. And I guess this probably happened to me a bit within the kind of pandemic where we would usually look at a business and we would look at 6 months in advance and plan that out. But now we're looking 6 weeks in advance, or 3 weeks in advance. And I think even now, a year later, and we're still in lockdown, still got the lockdown hair and beard and everything, right? But we're still looking at, we want the 6 month strategy, but we're pulling this back because we want to win the month. We don't want to kind of win 6 months just, we want to keep those wheels moving and stuff like that to bring it in. Although I think that demand will be there. And this goes against a little bit about what I was saying, I guess, with the kind of the bottom and lots of businesses starting up, is I actually think people will move back to doing lots of stuff locally and lots of stuff with kind of smaller businesses and that, because I think we will go so far in one way and then we will get into the next. And again, we're talking macro there, so I guess on a micro level with marketing, is I think probably the best kind of way that I could say to move forward that I think will really work is to simplify things.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be the big thing. I think it's just going to be a case of, look, we have this product or service. Do you want it? This is how much it costs. This is why you may want it. This is how you can move ahead. Rather than lots of kind of within marketing, lots of people wanting systems and funnels and all this kind of stuff, and even when talking about kind of like building out a house, I think for if you have a bigger type business or an SME type business, you need all these components because you need to build out a house, right? But if you're just a small business, you may just need some kind of shelter, so you may need to just kind of build that kind of tent. And I think that's the big thing for me, is I think sometimes people look miles ahead when they just need to look now. And I think if you keep it simple, and I got this kind of concept that I call the POP, which is your positioning, offering, and process. And I think if you get this right, you can have a successful business. Because it takes one product, or service, and it just really irons out who that buyer is going to be, why, how they can come in to buy it, what that offer is, that transformation, and then how you're going to deliver that transformation. And from there, you can build out all the tools around that.
Very interesting you say that as well, because there's a lot of I write for a lot of coaches, and coaches have this thing that they have to deliver lots of different services at lots of different price points, and sometimes then going back to keeping it simple, you need to stop that. One or two products, you could make a good income from one or two service products when they're sold correctly. If you've got a string of 5 or 6, people can sometimes think, well, even the person delivering it can think, hang on, I'm not even sure where I am on this whole scale. So I know that there used to be the value ladder that was quite a popular and still is, and I can understand it. It's the value ladder, the whole concept was very, very popular. But you don't need too many steps, because if you have more than 4 and you're getting into a 5th and a 6th, your business, especially when you are kind of a smaller lifestyle business, your business, you're gonna to deliver that, you're gonna have a real problem. So you actually need to keep that delivery, that fulfillment, easier so that you can manage it. Because there's no reason why just with a small set of products you can't have a good business. You don't need to make it complicated.
So something there as well is I think it comes down to the type of business. So I think if it's a coach and it's someone working on their own, then that kind of stuff can be crippling. Because, if you've got X amount of levels, obviously by the time you move up levels, or if you're moving down levels within a funnel, it's a case of, well, if someone's paying a lot more money, it probably means that you're allocating a lot more time, a lot more resources. So does that mean then that you're taking away from the amount of people that you could get in the beginning.
Yeah.
And it's like, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, because you could be making more money, but then your risk is higher because you're only dealing with one person. So if that person pulls the plug, all of a sudden now there's no pipeline, you know, because you've stopped bringing people in, you know, and you've got no revenue because that person's gone. You know, so I think that you say it can be really difficult. You can have that, you know, just one or two options, and it would work great, you know. And then as you kind of get a bigger business and stuff, it could be that way. And one of the things that I dislike about that whole kind of value ladder kind of thing, I think having the right kind of steps and having those services are great. But I think so many times people are saying you have to go through one level to get to the next, to get to the next. But sometimes people just want that bigger product right now, you know. And I think that's it, you know. I think that's somewhat I was meaning with that kind of Amazon kind of on-demand feeling, is I think people want instant results. And like we said with marketing, I think it is managing expectations, but it's also explaining, I guess, that those kind of mini conversions are the mini results for people as well. So you know, how they are progressing, you know. And I think that's the big thing, like I said, with my kind of services, where we looked at 6 months, is that, well, okay, look, we are planning out how we get to that place, but we're looking at that big goal being in 6 months. Well, look, let's work on that goal being 4 weeks time, you know, so we know that we've achieved that goal. You know, whether that goal could be quick income, it could be, you know, that it's getting a product to market, you know, and stuff like that. It's like, we need those milestones, we need those goals to hit to get there. So yeah, I think marketing in general is a funny one. There's lots of things that go into it. For me, there's not one size fits all, you know. Otherwise it would be quite easy. You know,
that's right.
But I think it's just a case of working with someone to figure out what it's going to be.
Yeah, and I think that's right. It takes the thought for that particular business. So each business is different in its own way, and I think and the way that, again, how I approach the copywriting is that I'll be writing different pieces of copy in different ways for different people. So everyone has their own tone of voice and language that they particularly use for me in a writing point of view. But I guess it's the same thing for you. Each business is going to has maybe different services. Obviously, we'll have different services, different products, but they're going to want to work in a particularly different way. So your marketing, although the principles are still the same, you're still taking the time to think about how best to market that business. It becomes, in most cases, you take the elements that work, and then you bespoke and you create a kind of a program tailored to them, using those elements that you know that work. I guess that's that's how it seemed for me anyway.
I guess that's that thing as well for me. Go back to I was saying about that pop setup that I use with positioning, offering, and process. Is we're looking at an individual product or service, right? And like you said, where you may have different kind of services. Well, that person who's looking to buy that lower one, the copy that you're going to write, you know, and the way you're going to explain the benefits and the outcome, are going to be different to the level above that person's looking.
Absolutely.
But I think so many times, like what happens within kind of business marketing is people look to market their business. And they look to market their business as a whole, rather than marketing an individual product or service to an individual.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, totally. And I think, again, it comes back to where I think we started off on saying this a while back on this. Everything needs a purpose. When it comes down to copy, it has to be a purpose. So using your pop idea, if it's a lower end product or service or whatever, the copy will have to reflect that. So each copy needs that purpose. If it's a higher end product, you're looking for a different market. So you have your you have your avatars or personas per service or product, not per business, because once you have per business, you're again you're diluting your message. Again, I tell people to write as if they're to the way I write and the way I teach people to write is write as if you're having a conversation with somebody across the table, specifically one person, not hundreds, and you're selling something that they want, that particular service that they want, and you're speaking to them directly. And you can only do that with getting that persona right, but you can only do that when you're talking about one service and not, well, we've got this and we've got this and we've got this and we've got this.
Totally.
Because once you confuse the buyer, they'll never buy. You cannot confuse a buyer.
Too many options.
Yeah.
You know, but then they never go ahead because they're trying to figure out what it is.
Yeah.
I like that. And like you said, you know what, you know my view on the whole kind of, there's so many tactics out there in marketing that have been diluted over the years, and you know, different people are kind of explaining them in a way that doesn't work, you know,
Yeah.
and using them as quick win kind of methods to get business in and stuff like that. And like you said, that, you know, a business doesn't have an avatar. You know, you might be able to get away with that if you're really niche and you just have one type of product, you may get away with that. But you know, if you take a big company, for example, if you take Nike, and you know, they make a number of different shoes, and they have shoes for basketball players and runners and
Yeah.
footballers, you know, even for the youths in the street, you know, and the middle-aged man on the golf course or whatever,
Yeah.
you know, there's
Yeah.
all different kind of shoes. So who
Yeah.
is Nike's avatar? Well, there isn't one,
There
but the
isn't
actual
one.
shoe does have them.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And then there's even mini avatars broken down off of that. You know, I
Yeah.
think there's so many there. I think one thing to kind of maybe, let's flip things on its head a bit. So you said about every copy having a purpose,
Yeah.
and we started off in this conversation talking about copy and content. Is there an element of content just being content and having no purpose?
Yeah. I think the problem with the problem I see a lot of people, websites are classics where they become a kind of a brochure website. So content's been put onto a website. It doesn't speak to anybody. It tries to speak to a whole massive audience out there, and and like you said, it's about the company. And they might have a separate page on their website saying our services, but but they're not. They are kind of they add to the confusion because the content is too generic for people to understand what they're doing. So really, each service needs to have its specific type of content, and that becomes your purposeful copy. So you can have that general content about your values, and your values and that kind of things will be the same. So how we work and our principles. That's a general thing. That's fine because that's your business. You're not at this point trying to sell anything. But when it comes to your specific services, that copy has to be purposely written. And the one word that a lot of people don't use enough is you. And they're selling to you. They're making you, like when they're talking again, the conversation across the table, I'm not talking to me, I'm talking to you. And that's a word that is not used enough on websites
I
because
love
it's
that. I
not.
think I heard that like quite some years ago with video, and they just said, like, you know, how many people are watching this video, and I think it was like a live video or something like that, and there's thousands on there, and someone's like, well, it says at the bottom 1,000. It's like, no, only one person is watching, because it's only you who are watching, you
Yeah.
know, who is watching this video. And I
Yeah.
guess, yeah, any person reading the website, it's only them, you know, it's only
Yeah.
themselves
Yeah.
who are reading that website.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. What about just I guess blog posts? We mentioned blog posts and stuff like that. We mentioned the ones which are kind of leading people in into a sale or moving them onto another page. Can you just have blog posts then that are just like, you know, the team, and, you know, meet the team, or, you know, this is what we got up to last Wednesday on a fun day, you know,
You
without
can,
there being any
yeah,
purpose behind it?
definitely you can do. So it has a purpose. So again, in this great model, the whole middle part, the E and the A of the model are about building the relationship and the trust and nurturing the audience. As long as it's part of a strategy, and I've seen a few people do this really well on LinkedIn, especially. So the strategy is that we want we want to be transparent. So you don't want to have this mystical business behind the scenes that no one knows. So they start to meet the team, how the team works, and by sharing those kind of those episodes of the team or the events the teams have been on, and understanding how they interact, people like to see that because they love people. People love finding out about people and finding out how it works. So if it's all part of a strategy, again, coming back to that word strategy, if it's all part of the strategy, it's a great thing to employ. And I remember I read recently, we talk about that. People talk about the number of touch points that someone has to do to actually get to a sale. I've heard now it's gone way above 20, it's up to about 27 or something. So all these things are little touch points that people can just see. As long as they're not on their own, they've got to be part of this whole, the strategy of saying, okay, we know ultimately this is where we want you to be because we want you to be buying our product. What are all the steps along the way that can really help us build that relationship and nurture trust, and get people to feel they're part of our company even before they buy anything.
I
And
think
that's
that's a
one
big
of the
thing,
things
isn't it?
we
It's
do.
that, it's, as much as those kind of steps of sale and stuff like that, it, it doesn't matter on a time frame. Someone may have those 12 interactions or 20 interactions, whatever it is, within a short period of time. Maybe they're in that mindset of they are ready to buy and they're just trying to make a decision. But someone else may take 6 months,
Yeah,
to buy, and it's all those kind of interactions that they see. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
I think for me, there's this big thing. I guess there's a bit of a debate on video where you may get, say, the videographers and maybe there's a ploy because the ones who are selling professional videos and stuff like that are saying, you need professional videos and stuff. But then we're also seeing a way where people are seeing that they're professional videos and they know they're kind of set up. Whereas sometimes you then have the kind of raw videos of just kind of pressing go on your phone and doing a video. I think we've probably got to a stage now, especially in the past year, and you see it on LinkedIn and stuff like that, where even though they're looking like they're raw videos, they are set up because the person's planned that out way in advance and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I guess you then, I guess this kind of video, for example, is raw. We don't know what we were going to say.
Yeah.
The conversation's just rolled for however kind of long. But we, just from kind of having these conversations, you pick up on little things that we probably covered so much stuff that we wouldn't have covered if we sat down and planned this out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Is there an element within copy and within content where that works away from video?
Um, is there? I guess it's kind of it's kind of, yeah, creating. So again, copy is very tailored, I suppose, to a certain extent to talking to the person. But when you ask questions, and you can expand on those questions, you can start building in the kind of mini conversations. But it's difficult in just having in copy presenting that way, because it can only be as interactive as the reader wants it to be. So you've got to be kind of putting the things in. But certainly questions are the interaction in copy is when people start to think about your copy. So when you can ask open-ended questions, because they always normally have to be open-ended questions, and when you start a thought process in the reader, you are in effect interactive. You're interacting with them. Now, you're not having a conversation on the page, because that's very, very difficult to do. So that's the extent that copy can actually create an interactive process. But I guess on video, you can do the same thing where you're just asking, you maybe have, you can script in where you're going to be asking a couple of questions, and you just allow the conversation to flow. Very much like we've been doing here, and you allow the conversation to flow. So it's probably easier to have that interaction. Well, obviously it is on video than in copy, but this is, again, comes back to why I think headlines should be open-ended, short, and always be asking a question. And even, especially when it comes to short posts to do on LinkedIn, is you ask a question at the top and even ask the same question at the bottom. So, for example, I wrote a blog I put out recently was, "Is your copy bland, or are you bland?" I think it was, with a question mark. That makes people think, "What do you mean, am I bland?"
Yeah.
Yeah. So they think, "What's
I
that?"
like that. Yeah.
So they click onto it, and I talk about focus and your personality coming through, and at the end of it, I'll say, "So are you bland?" And that makes them think, "Oh, hang on, he could be right, actually. Maybe I'm not doing those things." And the whole idea is to get them thinking, and and from that, I've actually had inquiries from someone who said, "Look, I don't know if my copy's up to the scratch. Can we work together?" But it wasn't a sale; it's just a question. But sales are conversations.
Yeah, definitely.
Sale is just a conversation.
I think from that kind of copy, that makes perfect sense. I think there's a big thing around like know, like, and trust. People say about know, like, and trust. People like to buy from people that they know, like, and trust, and I buy into that, because I think that does happen. You kind of you get to know someone, you trust them, and then
Yeah.
you buy from them. I think sometimes we still buy from people we don't like, or we
Yeah.
maybe we don't know. It's like maybe we wouldn't buy from them if we didn't trust them. But sometimes we would buy because we know what we're getting. Maybe they're the only person. But what I like to look at with marketing is that we go beyond those levels, and I call it intrigue, intent, and desire. Because I think what we're doing there is we I guess from like headlines and stuff like that, is we kind of want stuff that is going to intrigue people into wanting to know what it's all about, or the next kind of step. We want that kind of intent then, so people who are showing intent, to maybe move through. And then we want people who have that desire to obviously then either purchase or, book that next step to speak with us. And I guess that probably touches on what you were saying now with the headlines, is that, we have to have that intrigue, right?
Yeah.
There has to be that next step. We have to want to take that next step. And I guess this is probably where you get a lot of the, I guess the spam kind of clickbaity stuff, is they would come out with a headline and people would click it, and then the content would be nothing relevant to
what
the title was.
And yes, and that used to happen. I don't see it so much more, but I did see a YouTube post recently from somebody who, I can't remember what the headline was now, but it was nothing to do. It was about losing weight without, I think something about losing weight without watching what you eat. And then the content was all about business, and it was so tenuous, it didn't really link to the headline. And I think a lot of people probably watched that and thought, well, okay, I don't really understand what this guy's talking about. And I think there's less of that now. But just going back to your point about the intrigue, I think this is really, really good for email marketing sequences. So I write email marketing sequences for people who are trying to launch, who want to launch a product. And the whole idea of the sequence is that it sort of builds over time. So the headline's still very important, and you got to get them in, but it's kind of like building the intent to the email, or having a message you want to deliver over a period of weeks. And so the intrigue is there, and then the intrigue is at the end of the email. Find out tomorrow, we're going to talk about this. And if it's a pertinent thing that people think, I need to know about that, they'll start looking for tomorrow's email.
Yeah, totally.
So I think there's a great element of that in kind of like the old, if you remember the old Batman serials, you end on a cliffhanger.
I think, but I guess that is it, isn't it? Like, you think like those cliffhangers, like EastEnders, for example. It is that as soon as that kind of boom 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 clicks in at the end, it always ends on a cliffhanger. It's not just like someone, it's not just a nicey kind of thing.
No, that's right.
And it finishes. Right. It always kind of builds up to, you have to watch the next episode.
And I think that's where that so you build that intent. And I think there's, and copywriting it's been around for years, and it still follows, again, very similar to marketing, still follows the same principles. And the principles are really, you have to appeal to emotions first to get people to read. And it's very simple. The simple principles, but people buy on logic, and then they'll buy on emotion, and then they'll justify that with logic. And a classic magazine that has been around for years is Which magazine, which has the emotion, and then it gives you the backup of the logic. So the emotional side, it comes up at different cards, and then the logic of why this one's the best one to buy, or whatever. It gives you kind of a sequence of an analysis. But again, you just got to look at people who go and buy houses or buy kitchens. There's normally an emotional person, often the wife. I'm not trying to be too, but often it's the wife. I love this kitchen. And often it's the husband who thinks, yes, but can we afford it? Does it tick this box? Does it tick that box? Sometimes it's the other way around, but often it's, of course it does. And they justify the boxes it ticks, even if it doesn't quite justify the boxes, but because the emotion is already there.
The emotion.
And, emotion first. Always lead with emotion first.
I think that's a good topic to end on, right?
Emotion. I think so.
I think maybe we'll talk around that kind of topic in the next video. Talk about emotion in marketing, and that kind of transformation that people want. And we'll do that. So I think maybe that's a good point to end.
Okay.
Maybe just before we do, if you want to tell people where they can find out more about you, where they can get in touch.
Okay. So I haven't got anything on screen, but so if they want to email me, so it's Mark that's MARK at greatcopyworks.co.uk. My website is greatcopyworks.co.uk. And of course, you can always, my mobile, I'll put that mobile, I don't mind put my mobile out, my work one. So that's 07378 660 566. And if you want some help or just some pointers to start with on how to write copy, then please get in touch.
What about LinkedIn and stuff like that? Is it just your name?
Yeah, I think my LinkedIn profile is Mark H. Tanner, actually. But yeah, if you put my name onto LinkedIn, All Great Copyworks, you'll find it as well. And I do have a Facebook page, which is, again, I think it's Great Copyworks. But you can find that from my profile, Mark Tanner, on Facebook.
I think wherever we put this video, we'll put some links with in the description.
Yeah, we'll get some links on.
Yeah, I think just obviously anyone watching this, they may want to go and follow you or get in touch.
Yeah.
Wherever you're watching this video, and like I said, this is on the fly. We've kind of just made this up, so this is the first one in a series of strategy and conversion, where we're going to talk about all things in marketing. So we will figure out where we put those things, on whichever channel you're watching. But yeah, I think if you have anything else to add, I think I'm done.
No, I think we've covered a lot, actually, in this. How long are we going back now?
I have no idea. I think we've just been chatting, right? I think
Yeah.
next time I definitely need to start off with a fresh cup of tea.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And do things that way. But
yeah,
I mean, obviously, thank you for your time, and I think this has been very valuable. I think for anyone watching, and even just for myself, it's been great. And I guess just say thanks to the people watching, or maybe with from the content that you mentioned, that the tips within here, we'll put it directly to that person. So thank you for watching, and do things that way. But yeah, mate, it's been a pleasure, and we're getting together for the next video.
Yeah. Okay. Great stuff. Thank you very much.
That's great.
Yeah. Cheers.
Yeah.